I believe good things are coming our way. Carol Harris encouraged herself as she wrote bedroom with a permanent marker on a moving box. She had mixed feelings about leaving the apartment where she grew up to move to a suburban single-family home. While it was sad to leave a place she'd lived in for 10 years, she felt genuine joy at being able to give her daughter Emma a house with a yard. "Mom, will I have my own room in the new house?" asked 6-year-old Emma as she placed her stuffed animal, Mr. Whiskers, on the bed. Her chestnut hair was tousled, and her big blue eyes sparkled with anticipation. "Of course, Emma. You'll have your very own lovely room. You can see the backyard from the window, and we can paint the walls any color you like," Carol answered, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "I want pink," Emma said without hesitation. Carol smiled. The move to their new home was made possible by her husband Michael's promotion. Michael had worked at a local IT company for many years and finally secured a position as a senior project manager. The salary increase brought significant changes for the family, making it possible to move to a better school district. This was the right decision for Emma, Carol reassured herself as she carried boxes from the living room to the kitchen. She worked as an administrative assistant at an elementary school and had already arranged to transfer to a position she could commute to from their new home. In the evening, Michael returned from work. Though signs of fatigue showed in his eyes, his expression brightened when he saw his family. "How's the packing coming along?" he asked, giving Carol a kiss on the cheek. "Almost done. Just need to pack the last few things tomorrow morning," Carol replied. Emma is so excited. She wants to paint her room pink. Michael laughed. "Of course, our princess needs a pink castle." He took a beer from the refrigerator and sat down next to Carol at the kitchen counter. "It's really a nice house. Great view, close to Emma's school, and we got it within our budget." "I'm sure it's a lovely house since you were so enthusiastic about it," Carol said. In truth, she had initially been hesitant about the 40-year-old house. However, after Michael visited the property multiple times and explained everything with such enthusiasm, she gradually came to agree. As Charlotte said, the previous owner needed to sell quickly, so they reduced the price quite a bit, Michael mentioned. Charlotte Wilson was their real estate agent who had been professional throughout the process. "Why were they in such a hurry?" Carol asked. "Apparently a job transfer." "I didn't ask for details." Michael finished his beer and asked, "Where's Emma?" "Playing in her room." "Hey, Michael." Carol continued, choosing her words carefully. "You'll be able to help with the move tomorrow, right?" Michael frowned slightly. "Actually, I have an important meeting tomorrow that I can't miss, especially since I just got promoted." Carol couldn't hide her disappointment. Lately, Michael often called to say he'd be late because of work. While she understood his promotion and new responsibilities, she sometimes felt uneasy about suspicious notification sounds from his smartphone. "But I'll join you in the evening. I've arranged for movers, so they'll handle the initial heavy lifting." Michael placed his hand on her shoulder, trying to reassure her. Carol sighed and agreed. "All right. Emma and I will go ahead and get things ready." That night, after putting Emma to bed, Carol leaned against her daughter's doorway and caught her asking a quiet, prayer-like question. "Is anyone living in the new house?" Emma whispered, looking up at the ceiling. Carol quietly entered the room and sat on Emma's bed. "No, only our family will be living there from now on. But Daddy said someone used to live there before." "Yes, but those people moved away. They're not there anymore." Carol kissed Emma's forehead. "Now, tomorrow's a big day. You need to get plenty of sleep." Carol left her daughter's room and headed to her own bedroom. Michael was already lying in bed, looking at his phone. When she approached, he quickly turned off the screen. "Is Emma asleep?" he asked. "Yes," Carol answered as she got into bed. "She seems to be thinking about the new house. Our new life starting tomorrow will be wonderful," Michael said and turned off the lamp. 3 weeks before the move, Carol had visited the new house alone to measure for curtains. With a measuring tape in hand, she checked each room on the second floor, the master bedroom, Emma's room, and a small room at the end of the hallway. "What should we use this for?" Carol mused. The room was about 6 tatami mats in size, with a view of a maple tree in the backyard. Carol was considering making it Michael's study or a guest room. The walls were painted cream, and an old light fixture was attached to the ceiling. As Carol approached the window, she felt something catch. There was a strange bulge in part of the wall, and she touched it with her finger. It seemed like there was something under the wallpaper. Curious, she gently peeled back the edge of the wallpaper with her fingernail. A child's drawing done in colored pencils appeared. It showed a blue sky and green grass, with 3 stick figures. The words "Daddy," "Mommy," "Me" were written in childish handwriting. Carol frowned. Charlotte had explained that the previous resident was a single man living alone. She took out her smartphone and called Charlotte. "Mrs. Harris, what can I do for you?" Charlotte's voice sounded cheerful. "I just wanted to check something," Carol said, staring at the drawing on the wall. "Could you tell me a little more about the previous resident?" "Yes, his name was Martin Green. He worked in IT and lived alone." "Is there a problem?" "He didn't have any children." "Family?" "No, I understand he was single," Charlotte replied, sounding a bit confused. "Did you find something?" Carol hesitated for a moment. "No, nothing in particular. Just some children's drawings in the small room upstairs." "Ah, those might be from earlier owners. I heard Mr. Green purchased this house 2 years ago, but before that, a family lived here." "I see, that makes sense," Carol pretended to be reassured. "Thank you." After hanging up, she looked at the drawing again. The wallpaper appeared relatively new, but she couldn't determine how old the drawing underneath was. Thinking it might be traces of previous residents in this old house, she tried to put the wallpaper back in place. Just then, something fell to the floor. When Carol bent down, she found a plastic toy car. It was a red fire truck with a sticker on the side that read, "Jason's car." Carol wondered about this but put the toy in her pocket. The following week, Carol visited the new house again. This time she was with Michael to decide on paint colors. They had decided to remove the wallpaper in the living room and paint it a new color. "Emma's room should be pink, but I'd like a more subdued color for the living room," Carol said, holding color samples. "I'll leave it to you," Michael answered, but his gaze seemed distant. His smartphone rang, and after quickly checking it, he said, "It's work. I need to take this," and went outside. Carol watched her husband through the window. While on the phone, Michael walked to the edge of the garden, occasionally looking around as if checking his surroundings. He appeared tense. Carol felt a small twinge of anxiety. Michael had been acting strange lately. Suspicious late-night calls, sudden schedule changes, and unexplained expenses. Last week, she had accidentally seen Michael's credit card statement and found charges for meals at restaurants she didn't recognize and jewelry purchases for items she'd never received. "It's just the stress from his promotion," Carol told herself. When Michael returned, there was a look of relief on his face. "Sorry, it was an urgent matter." "That's okay, is everything settled?" Carol asked. "Yes," Michael abruptly changed the subject. "Shall we check out the basement too?" The basement was half finished, with the rest usable as storage space. When Carol turned on the light, concrete walls and floors appeared. An old shelf stood in one corner. "This could be a workspace," Carol said. Michael stood in front of the shelf and said, "We should probably remove this." As Carol approached, she noticed something behind the shelf. "Wait, there's something here." As she reached out, Michael suddenly grabbed her arm. Be careful, there might be nails or something sticking out. Carol was startled. She felt his grip was a bit too tight. It's fine, I just want to check. When she moved the shelf, a small hole appeared in the wall. She reached in and pulled out a piece of paper. It was another child's drawing. A man and a boy standing on green grass, with the words, "Daddy and me, camping," written on it. Carol showed the drawing to Michael. I wonder if this belongs to the previous residents too. Michael's face tensed for a moment. Probably. Let's throw it away. He took the drawing and put it in his pocket. Anything else we need to see? Carol felt uncomfortable with her husband's reaction but said nothing. As the days of preparation for the move continued, the unease in Carol's heart grew gradually larger. On the morning of moving day, Michael got up early and was putting on a suit. A suit on moving day? Carol asked. I told you I have an important meeting, Michael replied while tying his tie in front of the mirror. But I'll join you in the evening. The movers are coming at 9, right? Yes, Carol answered. Emma and I will go ahead. Michael kissed her and said, looking forward to our first night in the new house, before leaving. Carol and Emma looked around the empty apartment while waiting for the movers. It's a little sad that we won't be living here anymore, Emma said. Yes, Carol put her arm around her daughter's shoulder. But we'll have even more fun things to do in our new house. She hoped her words would prove true. The autumn sunlight spreading across the New Jersey suburbs created an apparently peaceful and tranquil atmosphere. A white moving truck stopped on a street lined with trees beginning to turn red and yellow. Carol, holding Emma's hand, got out of the car. In front of them stood the two-story house that would become their new home. Blue-gray exterior walls with white window frames and a well-maintained small front yard. It looked like a typical ideal suburban home. This is our new home, Emma, Carol said in a slightly pitched voice. As the movers began carrying in the boxes, Carol headed to the entrance with the key in hand. Emma held her mother's hand tightly, appearing somewhat nervous. Are you nervous? Carol smiled at her daughter. Emma nodded silently. Because I don't have any friends or know the new school yet. It'll be fine. You'll make new friends quickly, Carol said as she inserted the key. When she turned it, the heavy wooden door slowly opened. The moment they stepped onto the tiled floor of the entrance, Emma suddenly stopped. Carol felt her small body begin to tremble. Mom, there's still someone in this house, Emma's voice was shaking. Carol laughed and answered, What are you saying? There's not even any furniture yet. However, she noticed the smile had disappeared from her daughter's face. Her blue eyes were wide with fear, and her small finger was pointing at something. There, look, Emma whispered. Carol looked in the direction her daughter was pointing. Upstairs, at the end of the hallway, the closet door in the master bedroom was slightly open. She caught her breath. During yesterday's viewing, she was certain she had closed all the doors. Wait here, Carol told Emma, instructing her to stay on the entrance mat. She slowly began to climb the stairs. The creaking of the wooden floor sounded oddly loud in the silence. When she reached the hallway, the open closet door seemed to be swaying slightly, as if inviting her. Is anyone there? Carol called out, but there was no response. She cautiously approached and opened the door further. The closet was empty, with only freshly painted white walls visible. Carol breathed a sigh of relief. However, looking closer, she noticed a small gap between the wall and the floor at the back of the closet. She bent down and stared at it. Something blue was visible through the gap. When she touched it with her finger, it felt like the edge of something. With a mix of fear and curiosity, Carol pulled out the blue object. It was a small child's backpack. Light blue fabric with dinosaur patches sewn on. On the back was written, Jason G. With trembling hands, Carol unzipped the backpack. Inside were several children's items. A partially used box of crayons, red and blue miniature cars, and a folded piece of paper. When Carol opened it, a child's drawing appeared. It showed an adult man and a boy holding hands, with the words, "Day with Daddy" written on it. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma's voice came from downstairs. "Oh, yes. I'll be right there." Carol hastily tried to put the backpack back where she found it but changed her mind and decided to take it with her. She firmly closed the closet door and went downstairs. "What happened?" Emma asked with a worried face. "Nothing," Carol tried to reassure her, but felt her voice trembling. "The door was just open because of the wind." Emma looked unconvinced but didn't say anything more. "Mom, I want to go back home," Emma said in a small voice. "We can't go back, Emma," Carol said. "The movers are already bringing in our things." Indeed, the movers were carrying boxes through the front door one after another. "Where should I put this, Mrs. Harris?" one of the workers asked. Carol shook her confused head and answered, "In the living room." She took Emma's hand and said, "Come on, let's go see your room." She quickly hid the blue backpack in her handbag and headed upstairs with her daughter. Emma's room was sunny, with a view of the large maple tree in the backyard from the window. "This is your new room," Carol tried to say cheerfully, but her mind was full of other thoughts. Whose backpack was this? Charlotte had said the previous resident was a single man. But what if he had children? Or perhaps it belonged to even earlier residents? Emma was staring out the window when she suddenly said, "There's someone under the tree." Carol's heart leaped. What? She rushed to the window and looked outside. There was no one under the maple tree in the backyard. Only the shadow of the tree swaying in the wind fell on the ground. "I don't see anyone," Carol said. "He disappeared," Emma said with a puzzled look. "There was a little boy there." A chill ran down Carol's spine. She gently gripped her daughter's shoulders and asked, "Emma, did you really see someone? Or was it your imagination?" Emma looked up at her mother and said, "It was real. He was wearing a blue shirt." Carol closed the window and drew the curtains. "It was probably a neighborhood child. Maybe you'll meet him later," she tried to say cheerfully, but her voice trembled slightly. She encouraged Emma to look around the room while she stepped into the hallway. She took out the backpack and checked the contents again. These were definitely a child's belongings. And Jason G. was probably the child's name. Carol thought about it. Martin Green was the previous owner. Was G the initial for Green? Charlotte had said he was single, but what if he had a secret family? Or perhaps he was divorced and his ex-wife and child visited occasionally. "Mrs. Harris, where do you want the kitchen boxes?" a mover's voice called from downstairs. "I'll be right there." Carol hurriedly hid the backpack in the bedroom closet and went downstairs. The rest of the day passed busy with organizing belongings and arranging furniture. Carol consciously tried not to think about the backpack she had found. It was just a coincidence, a relic of the previous residence, she told herself. At 6 p.m., she received a call from Michael. "Sorry, the meeting is running long. I'll be a bit later than expected," his voice sounded tired. "What time do you think you'll be home?" Carol asked. "Around 8 or 9. How's Emma?" "She seems a bit tired. She's watching a DVD in the living room now." "I see. Talk to you later." Michael hurriedly hung up. Carol stood still for a moment. She sensed a tension in Michael's voice that was different from usual. She returned to the living room and sat beside Emma on the sofa. "Isn't Daddy coming home yet?" Emma asked. "He still has some work to do," Carol answered. "What would you like for dinner?" "There seems to be a pizza place nearby." "Pizza?" Emma brightened for a moment but quickly returned to looking anxious. "Mom, this house makes strange noises." Carol listened carefully. Indeed, she could hear faint sounds coming from somewhere in the house. "It's just an old house. The wood expands and contracts, making those sounds," she explained. "It's nothing to worry about." She took out her smartphone and called a nearby pizza place. After placing the order, she told Emma, "They said it'll be here in about 30 minutes. I'm going to go organize the bedroom. You stay here and watch your DVD," Carol said and headed upstairs. In reality, she intended to examine the backpack again. She retrieved the blue backpack from the bedroom closet and spread its contents on the bed. Examining the contents again, she found a small notebook she hadn't noticed before. Opening it, she found a diary written in childish, awkward handwriting. June 15th. Today, I went to the new house with Daddy. Daddy said we would live here with Mommy and me. But we have to keep it a secret. Carol's hand trembled. The next page read, June 20th. Daddy went back to the other house. Mommy cried. Why does Daddy live in 2 houses? She was shocked. What did this mean? Had the previous owner, Martin Green, been living a double life? If he had a family elsewhere? The doorbell rang, making Carol jump. The pizza delivery had arrived. She quickly put the notebook back in the backpack and hid it in the closet. Mom, pizza! Emma shouted from downstairs. Coming. Carol replied and went downstairs. That night, she ate pizza with Emma and tucked her daughter into her new bed. Michael still hadn't returned. Carol went back downstairs, poured herself a glass of wine in the kitchen, and stared into the darkness outside the window. In her mind, the contents of the backpack she had found and Michael's recent inexplicable behavior overlapped. An anxiety that some great secret existed between this house and Michael began to take over her heart. On the 3rd morning after moving in, Carol woke up early. Beside her was Michael, sleeping with an exhausted expression. Last night, he had returned home after 11 p.m. His explanation that the important meeting ran long was too vague, but Carol didn't press him. She was focused on uncovering a different mystery. In the quiet morning hours before Emma woke up, Carol decided to thoroughly investigate the house. The existence of the blue backpack suggested there was an untold story in this house. She first headed to the attic. Lowering the folding stairs, she entered the dark space with a flashlight in hand. Several footprints were visible in the dusty floor. They were fresh. Someone had visited here recently. In a corner of the attic, a small wooden box was placed. Carol approached it, shining her flashlight, and opened the box. Inside was a men's dress shirt and a small bottle of unfamiliar cologne. The collar of the shirt had the initials MG embroidered on it. Martin Green. It must have belonged to the previous owner. But why hadn't Michael found this during the pre-move inspection? Or had he found it but said nothing? Carol noticed an envelope remaining at the bottom of the box. It contained multiple photographs. They showed an unfamiliar woman. She was beautiful with long brown hair. Next to her was a small boy. And in one photo, there was a man. Carol gasped. The man was surely Martin Green, the previous owner, but what was his relationship with the woman and child in the photo? If he was single, why were there family photos like these? She returned the photos to the envelope and came down from the attic. Next, she headed to the basement. She wanted to thoroughly examine behind the shelf that Michael had said should be removed before they moved in. After moving the basement shelf, Carol found an unnatural cut in the wallboard. When she gently pressed it with her finger, a small section opened. An unpainted wooden box was hidden there. Carol pulled out the box and opened it. Inside was a photo album. As she turned the pages, she found photos of the same woman and boy she had seen in the attic, along with her husband Michael. Carol's head spun. The dates overlapped with the period when she and Michael were married. The most recent photo was from 3 months ago, showing Michael and the boy fishing. First fishing trip with Dad, July 2024, was written on the back. Carol's hands shook. She sat down on the basement floor and closed the album. Michael had been living a double life. Despite being married, he had maintained a relationship with another woman and child, probably spending time with them in this house. And what he called business trips or overtime was likely time spent with this secret family. Mom. Emma's voice suddenly came from the top of the stairs. Carol hurriedly put the album back in the box and pushed it into the hiding place. "I'm here, Emma," she called out while returning the shelf to its original position. When Emma came down to the basement, Carol forced a bright expression. "Good morning, did you sleep well?" "Yes," Emma answered with still sleepy eyes. "What are you doing?" "Just inspecting the house," Carol said. "Let's have breakfast." While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Carol's mind was in turmoil. She was torn between confronting Michael with the truth immediately or gathering more evidence. "Where's Daddy?" Emma asked. "He's still sleeping," Carol answered. "He was late last night." At that moment, Michael came down the stairs. He looked tired but smiled at his family. "Good morning, everyone." "Good morning," Carol replied shortly. She stared at her husband's face. This person was different from who she thought she knew. A mixture of anger and sadness spread in her chest. "Is something wrong?" Michael noticed her gaze and asked. "No, nothing," Carol said. "I made coffee." Michael accepted the coffee and said, "I'm taking the day off work. I'll help with the unpacking." "I see," Carol answered. She had made her decision. Today, while Michael was at home, she needed to gather more evidence. And when he went out in the evening, she planned to conduct her final investigation. That afternoon, Michael said, "I got an urgent call," and left the house for a short time. Carol used this opportunity to search through Michael's belongings. In a hidden pocket of his suitcase, she found a small key. It was clearly not a house key but was for some kind of lock. In the evening, as expected, Michael said, "I have documents that must be submitted by tomorrow," and left again. After putting Emma to bed, Carol steeled her resolve. It was time to uncover the truth. She returned to the basement and retrieved the album from its hiding place. Carefully examining it from beginning to end, she noticed a small pocket on the inside back cover. There was a slip of paper inside. It contained an address and phone number for a woman named Linda Jones. The address was unfamiliar to her but was within the same state. Carol took out her smartphone and searched for the address on a map application. It was about 30 miles from their house. She stared at the phone number. Linda Jones. The mother of Michael's other family. And Jason was their son. She wasn't prepared to accept this truth. But all the evidence was right in front of her. Michael had been living a double life for years, deceiving her family. And now, he had moved Linda and Jason somewhere else and moved Carol and Emma into the house where he had once lived with his secret family. That was why he had enthusiastically recommended this house. Carol closed the album and returned it to its hiding place. Tomorrow, when Michael returned, she planned to confront him with all the evidence. The next evening, when Michael returned from work, Carol had laid out all the evidence on the living room table. The blue backpack, the album, the hidden photos, and the child's diary. Emma was playing at a new friend's house in the neighborhood. She didn't want her daughter to witness this confrontation. "What are you doing?" Michael stopped as soon as he entered the front door, seeing the items spread out on the table. She could see the color draining from his face. "Sit down," Carol said in a calm voice. She crossed her arms to hide her trembling hands. "I need you to explain some things to me." Michael slowly sat down on the sofa. What have you found? The truth, Carol said. I know about Linda and Jason. Your hidden family. And that this house was your secret dwelling with them. Michael initially tried to deny it. What are you talking about? That belongs to the previous owner. Enough, Michael, Carol spread the photos on the table. The photos have dates on them. And everything is written in Jason's diary. You were living a double life. Even while married to us, you were living here with another family. Michael's shoulders slumped. He covered his face with both hands and remained silent for a while. It started 7 years ago, he finally spoke. I met Linda on a business trip. It was supposed to be a temporary relationship. But she got pregnant. He choked on his words. At first, I only intended to provide financial support. But when Jason was born, I couldn't stay away from him. Carol was frozen like stone. So you decided to maintain 2 households? I didn't want to hurt you, Michael said weakly. I didn't want to lose Emma either. But I couldn't cut ties with Jason. So you chose to live a double life, Carol continued his sentence. When you said business trip or overtime, you were actually spending time with them. Michael nodded. I bought this house under the false name Martin Green. When my promotion at work was decided, managing the schedule became difficult, so I moved Linda and Jason near relatives in Connecticut. And you moved us into your other home, Carol gave a bitter smile. Why? Guilt? Or simply because you didn't want to give up the house? Maybe both, Michael admitted. I've made a terrible mistake. I know I don't deserve to apologize to you. Carol stood up. Pack your things and leave tonight, her voice was trembling but filled with determination. I'll contact a lawyer tomorrow. I'm preparing for divorce. Carol, please, let's talk about this, Michael stood up and tried to approach her. Don't come any closer, Carol raised her hand. Please. For Emma's sake, leave quietly. That night, Michael silently packed his things and left the house. A year later, Carol stopped by a neighborhood coffee shop on her way back from dropping Emma off at school. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, and she had decided to continue living in the house rather than selling it. Though anxious at first, the house was no longer a symbol of fear or betrayal but had become a starting point for her and Emma's new life. The usual, Carol. Susan, the barista, smiled at her. She had built warm relationships with people in the neighborhood. Sitting by the window, she thought as she drank her coffee. She had heard rumors that Michael had moved to Connecticut and tried to live with Linda and Jason, but Linda had not accepted him either. Apparently, he was now living alone. Emma had adapted to her new school and made more friends. Carol continued her administrative job at the school while beginning to study psychology online. Someday, she wanted to help people who had experiences like hers. She looked up at the blue sky outside the window. Life takes unexpected turns, but knowing the truth is always the first step toward a new beginning. She took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her body. Carol Harris was now truly beginning to live her own life.